everyone, you are listening to She Leads with Carly. Our guest today is Maggie Ntim, the founder and CEO of Trinity 3 Agency. We had an amazing chat about how she came to be known as the connector, the challenges she faced throughout her career, and what it's like not only being a soccer agent, but one of the first African-American female soccer agents. As I'm sure you'll realize, Maggie does not shy away from breaking the so-called glass ceiling. Take a listen and enjoy. Maggie, thank you so much for coming on to She Leads today. I am so excited to have you on the show and just to learn from you, hear your story. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of this, and I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, me too. So, okay, before we get started, I'm going to read off an intro just because you have such an incredible intro that I don't want to mess it up. So anyway, Maggie,
thank you.
You are known to many as the connector from Queens, New York, who has built her brand as a sports and entertainment sponsorship and partnership maven, now CEO and soccer agent at Trinity 3 Agency. After spending a half a decade successfully navigating deals for sports, entertainment, and tech companies, your notable success include working with talent in companies such as 50 Cent, Nas, Kylian Mbappe, which is crazy coming from a soccer player, Margaret Purse, the late Nipsey Hussle, Universal Music Group, Madison Square Garden, Coca-Cola, and the 2018 FIFA Men's World Cup, 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup, to name a few. And you are also one of the first African-American female soccer agents on a mission to recruit more minority women agents and to advocate for more minorities in sports. So obviously, Maggie, you can tell I'm so excited to just tap into your story because you are really so inspirational. So,
Thank you.
Let's get started. I love talking back to when you were 20, 21 years old in college. Where was your mind at? What did you imagine your life being? Where did you see your career going? And what were you asking yourself?
Oh, man. So around that time, there was a lot happening for me. I was, making the transition to figure out what do I really want to do? Because growing up, I was a kid that had so many aspirations. I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted to be a soccer player. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a teacher sometimes. I wanted to be a singer. So it was so many different things, but I knew it had to revolve around entertainment and sports. And for me, during that phase, I was interning, had my first internship at Universal Music Group, and then I ended up getting hired to work with them. And throughout that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to start this way, but I'm never going to forget the other passions that I have. So at some point, music was going to open up the doors for me to help me get into sports because it was so tough to get into sports without connections. And so at that time, I said, starting here at Universal, I'll work on, partnerships and sponsorship deals for the artists. And then from there, I want to go and explore every single area within entertainment and even within sports, if possible.
Yeah.
And I did just that. I went on to MTV and got some experience there. I went back into music and was working with 50 Cent. At the time, he tells me he's building a boxing promotions company, which was phenomenal because that was the best way for me to get my foot in the door and gain some experience. Yeah. I was a fan of boxing from watching the sport, but didn't know much about it from the business side. And so I got a chance to learn. But one thing I did know was sponsorships, and I understood partnerships. And I knew by working on sponsorships for the boxing and for the company and for the boxers, this is a great way to get my name out there within the sports world.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then I started to gain even more traction. I went and was working with the NBA on their All-Star weekend and working with the NFL for Super Bowl and working with MLB for their All-Star game. And I was like, okay, I still need to tap into soccer because that was a true passion of mine. And I then remember talking to a friend while I was a brand ambassador for Nike Jordan brand. And he's like, you should look into like MLS and those things. And I said, yeah, but it's tough to get in.
Yeah.
So I then said, well, I always wanted to pursue my master's, and I went to Northeastern to study sports management and project management. And during my courses, I started to read more about the agency world and what that was like. And I said, well, I've always thought about it, and I thought about it within the soccer space. But I said, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to do it because it's tough. And I didn't see females, and I didn't see Black females that looked like me. So I just said, man, this is going to be tough. So that's what my mindset was during that time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's backtrack even coming out of college and you want to go into music to almost like soccer, sports in the back of your mind, but you're like, okay, music is a way to get there. But I think even you're skipping over the fact that it's like not easy to get into music either, it seems. So
no, it's not. It's not. You're right.
Yeah. So how did you do that? Like what do you attribute that success to getting a foot in the door with 50 Cent? Like that's not an easy feat to do. So yeah.
No, it's definitely not. So here's the interesting thing about music and with me and even my family. So growing up, my uncle is like a celebrity barber. So he would cut a lot of celebrities' hair.
Yeah.
And he knew I was a huge fan of Nas, but he would never let me meet him. And I'm like, okay, that's not fair, but whatever.
Yeah.
But then there would always be a gentleman at my house. And I'm like, who is this guy that's always cutting his hair? He's very loud. And he's like, well, that loud guy is the manager for Nas. And I'm like, no way. He's like, he lives 2 blocks from us and he's a good friend. And I'm like, wait. So maybe he could make something happen.
Yeah. And
so he would always bring over promotional items because, before social media and the internet, they were handing out, items, whether it was notebooks or promotional T-shirts. And so I would just stack up on everything that I could get that had anything with Nas on there. And I just remember asking him a question, how did he get to where he was? And when he explained it, and I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go into marketing and I'm going to do some of these deals and then I'm going to cross over into sports and do more deals. And that gentleman, by the way, his name happens to be Steve Stout. And so, I owe a lot of that to him. I owe a lot of that to my family because then my aunt was also in music at Atlantic Records record label. So seeing all of that, it's like, okay, this is happening. Yeah. Somehow, some way I'm going to get my foot in the door. And so what I did was, instead of using family, I applied for an internship and I wrote, a cover letter of my story and how I fell in love with music. And then I got the call back.
Incredible. And I think one thing that's so special that really tells a lot about you is just this idea where you take the opportunities that come. Like you saw this man in your house and you're like, I want to learn more. I want to talk to him more and learn about the industry. So I think that's something that's very, a lesson that a lot of people can take away from it. I think that's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me now about the transition from music to sports. You said you didn't see many females in sports, let alone African Americans, people of color. So how did that ever deter you or did that motivate you more? And what mindset did you have with all of this?
To go into soccer?
Yeah.
And see women. So it really started when I was at the World Cup in Moscow for the 2018 Men's FIFA World Cup. And when I noticed players like Mbappe and Jesse Lingard and, all those different players, I'm like, well, let's see what their representation looks like. Yeah. And then I said, okay, well, they don't have people that look like them. I mean, for Mbappe, at least he had his family. Yeah. But when I look at other players, I'm just like, man, really interesting. And then I started to do the same thing during the Women's World Cup. And I noticed some of them had some females, but a lot of them didn't. When I look at the USA in particular, the women's national team, I said, whoa, wait a minute. No way. Something's off. There's absolutely no way that they are not represented by a female, especially someone like Maggie Ntim. Yeah. So I said, this is interesting. So I went home and I started building thousands and thousands of spreadsheets and just researching extensively on all the agents. Yeah. So whether they were from the Federation of the US or they were from England. And then I started to look at the percentages and calculate myself with females. And I said, wow, really none. It's such a small number outside of the USA. Yeah. But in the USA, it's like a number that doesn't even exist. Easy. And so it just really inspired me. And I remember talking to a friend who's an agent out of England, and he represents Raheem Sterling and a few other guys from Colossal Sports. And, he said to me, it's going to be a challenge, but I don't think for one second that you can't do the job because I know you. Yeah. And I said, but it's bigger than just, wanting to be an agent. It's wanting to fight for these women to get equal pay, to get what they deserve and what they're worth. It's wanting to help these women build brands off the pitch from different partnerships. And you don't have to be the number one soccer player or even just the number one player on the women's national team, but it's really just, believing in you and understanding that you have a brand and that you are a brand. Each and every one of you are, a brand. And so, when I, sat down and made a decision and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And the best part about it is it doesn't matter if I fail. What's important was that I tried and made the effort. And so here I am.
Yeah. And did you ever have people telling you, like you had the one guy, he said, it's going to be hard, but you can do it. Did you have other people saying like, it's not worth, like maybe stay?
Absolutely.
And how did you react to them? And how did you kind of put it aside and be like, no, this, like, thank you, I'll prove you wrong?
I always laugh about it at first.
Yeah.
And then I just tell them, talk to you soon.
Okay.
And usually talking to you soon means I'll send them an article of some of my work. I've had the same thing entering into the music business where people said there's no way that you're going to be able to work with, this artist or that artist, or even, combine music and sports, or combine, your passions for music and tech, or sports and tech. But when I look at putting together an artist like 2 Chainz and Chad Ochocinco during the EA Sports tournament, that's possible.
Yeah.
Or if I look at taking someone like Margaret Midge Purse from Sky Blue FC, and she's working on a huge campaign for COVID-19 with Boss Water, that's possible. Incredible. Or if you take Kylian Mbappe and we're helping launch a new foundation in France for 98 kids, it's possible.
Amazing.
Or taking someone like Jadon Sancho and building a Nike pitch at his old school South Lambeth in South London, possible.
Yeah.
And so when they tell me that, I just laugh.
Yeah. And Maggie, do you ever, it's because I see this like resiliency and this perseverance, and it's applicable in many fields, especially like I have a lot of entrepreneurs on the show, and hearing from investors no countless times, and really like staying strong and staying true to what you're building and realizing it's bigger than yourself. Like you are trying to change the industry and really get more women, more people of color, more minorities. So what advice do you have for people who, to get through that hump and to get over that hump and realize, okay, I can still get through this. The odds are against me perhaps, but this is something that I need to do, and really staying mentally strong. How do you stay mentally strong?
Throughout the success, there's always been a lot of setbacks.
Yeah.
I've always dealt with obstacles and always have overcome those obstacles. One of the things I always tell people that many people don't know about me is that I've been fighting since I came out of my mother's womb. And people are like, oh yeah, sure. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Yeah. Like, I was born 5.5 months. My mother was 5.5 months pregnant when she gave birth to me. I weighed 1 pound, 5 ounces.
Oh my goodness.
When you're a premature baby that's born 4.5 months early, usually you're not even a fully developed like fetus, right? And the doctors didn't know whether I would make it. And to know that I overcame that obstacle to survive and survive as a healthy, child at the time, my grandparents always reminded me, you're here, you have a purpose. And it took me a while to find that purpose. But on this journey, I've found the purpose. And it's to make a difference. It's to share my story. It's to, continue to fight the good fight, to say, okay, obstacle that's thrown my way, I can handle that. Amazing. I can handle that and then some. And, I love to use the analogy of the glass ceiling, right? How they say, as women, we're breaking the glass ceiling. For me, I'm constantly crashing through glass ceilings.
Yeah. Constantly
crashing through the ceiling, breaking down doors. If you tell me no just means, okay, that's a maybe.
I love it.
It means maybe, and eventually it'll turn into on, which means if it's on, that means yes. So
I love it. It reminds me, I did an episode with Sylvia Acevedo, the CEO of Girl Scouts.
Yes, That was a good one. I love that
three
one.
no's. Like, she only accepts 3 no's before she walks away. Like, the first no, she's like, that's fine. I have 2 more chances to get to get.
Yeah.
So it's like that mentality is so strong, and I absolutely love it. So take me now into being a soccer agent and a sports agent. I'm not familiar with this industry, honestly, and I want to take me into this world. So, like, first, what's a day-to-day look like for you?
A day-to-day is hectic. Because so not only am I running, Trinity 3 agency, but I'm also an agent. I'm also a marketer. So it's busy. A day-to-day is obviously spending about 2 hours checking emails. And then obviously taking those time to respond to those emails, talking with my team. It's a very boutique, small team. And because we have services that we provide and we have clients that are based in like Spain. We have some clients in London. And of course, we have in America within the different states like Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, Charlotte. So it boils down to, okay, who's going to take what? Who's going to deal with what? And then also the clients varies because it's not just on the representation side where we're handling contract negotiations, but it's also maybe just marketing deals or public relations, PR. Is this person scheduled for an interview? Are they not scheduled for an interview? And we're also dealing with music. So we're dealing with entertainers. We're dealing with record labels. We're dealing with brands like Microsoft, Voss Water. So it's figuring out, okay, what campaign are we working on today? We also have an experiential events division where we produce events and we produce activations. So are we producing 10 activations this month or 5 activations this month? Which one of our clients, whether that's Imape or Sanchu, which one of them has something coming up that they want to tie into a brand partner that they currently have? Yeah. Whether it's like Imape can end up doing something with Hublot, and it could be an activation event to promote a new launch. So we may have to manage that. So it's tying in all of those things. And then, of course, for me, it's a lot more because I'm the only agent right now within the agency. So having to spend time on the contract negotiations for my guys. I don't represent any women soccer players. I'm looking. I definitely would love to. Yeah. If anything, because that's really where, my passion really lies for the women, because we can relate to each other. We're fighting for the same thing. Exactly. So, obviously doing that. And then also too, part of being an agent, you are like any and everything. You're handling your players, day-to-day management schedules. Okay, once their contract negotiations is settled or whether there's a renewal, that's fine. And then you're dealing with all the other stuff outside. Yeah. Because then you also have to kind of be a scout too. Exactly. You have to be a scout. We got to look for certain talent and we got to say, okay, I like this talent or I like this player. So I'm constantly on the go. Yeah. And then because I deal with clients in the US and in Europe, so the time zones is different too. And it's interesting though. I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it.
Incredible. And so obviously as a former soccer player at Stanford, it's very common for, female soccer players in college to continue to play pro. And in this time, it's a scary time because you're thinking of going pro. You need to find an agent. It's stressful. So I want to know almost from the agent perspective, and then we'll switch to the soccer player perspective. But from the agent, what are you looking for what questions are you asking when you see a potential soccer player to represent? And what are you asking them? What are you considering in your mind? And how do you know it's going to be a right fit?
Absolutely. Great question. So from the college side, what I love is most of the players I already know. I have an idea who you are, what year you're in school. So usually I like to work with the college players, or I should say wanting to work with the college players who are seniors making that transition. I am extremely big on education. And so I want any college player that I'm working with to have a degree. If you are maybe in your junior year and, okay, Maggie, I want to go pro now, then I'm going to sit down with you and your family and we're going to come to an agreement to say, okay, promise us all that you will finish your education. Wow. And so even if that's saying, okay, let's negotiate some type of clause with one of your teams. And if let's say you're playing at Stanford, like yourself, and it's your junior year and you have one more year. Yeah. I want to be able to say, okay, well, let's make sure Carly goes to a team that is nearby where she could still obtain her classes, or depending on how many classes she needs, if she can do it online, let's do that, where at least she can finish so she can spend her rookie year as a pro, and she could also finish her degree.
Yeah.
And it's like a 2-for-1, because I just feel like it's so important, and it's something to fall back on.
Yeah.
It's something to fall back on. And it's just a second passion outside of playing the sport. So that's something I tell them firsthand on the first side, is definitely making sure, they finish school, whether they go pro now or they wait senior year, perfect. Make sure they finish.
Yeah.
It's a scary time that we're in right now. And so this message I have is to all of the college soccer players, both men and women. It's a hard time, but don't let it discourage you. If you are entering your senior year and you're worried about possibly your season being, suspended or postponed, guess what? You are already a prospect or already someone that these leagues were looking at. And so don't be discouraged and feel like I'm not going to complete the goals, because you've already done it. You've already built your name. You've already built your brand from the first 1, 2, 3 years of college. And just remember that. Yeah. And so what you do in this time is, if that does happen to where your season is suspended, take advantage of social media. Show some of your highlights. Highlight your previous work. If you won an award for maybe All-American, highlight that. If you scored 3 or 4 goals in a game, highlight that. If you attributed to having 2 assists in a game, show that. Right. Because that's all a part of your brand. Those are all accomplishments that you have made. And that also shows scouts or coaches or even agents, wow, this person does have it.
Yeah, definitely.
This person does have it.
I think that's so great. Also, I think the value and education that you have is definitely a special and like a realistic view almost, because you said it's something to fall back on and it's important. So I think that's really, really important. And then
Absolutely.
So now from the soccer player's perspective, so people who are going pro, what questions should they be asking themselves when they see a potential agent? Like, how do they ensure that the incentives are aligned, what does the agent to player relationship look like? Is it supposed to be a relationship fit, almost like an investor entrepreneur? That's kind of how I imagine it, but yeah.
It's a good question.
What do you think?
So from player side, before you even talk to any agents, make a list. A list is so imperative. Make a list of the top 5 things you are looking for, the top 5 goals and what they mean to you, and what you want, not just within an agent, but what you want for your career. Okay. Compile a list of maybe 5 to 10 agents that you may have heard of, maybe from research or talking to former alums or players that you may know. Combine that and even mix it in with some new agents that you don't know. Yeah. And look at your goals and see how each agent aligns with those goals. If it's a big company, do you want an agent that represents half of the women's national team, which then means chances are they're a big, big company and they represent tons of players? Yeah. Or do you want a boutique agency to say, well, I really want them to cater to this? And then also think about off the pitch. That's extremely important. Which company or which agent has those relationships or has a portfolio that shows that they have built a successful brand for their client off the pitch? And then also think about this, because this is something for me as an agent and with my agency. I don't sign players that cannot provide 2 things. One, their 3 to 5 life plan, which could be after soccer. And then also whether or not they have ties to a charity or if they want to start a charity. Those 2 are so imperative to me at Trinity Free Agency. Yeah. And so when a player is coming to us, whether they're in college, it's never too early to say, okay, well, I want to plan for this, or I have an interest in real estate. And so even though I know I want to play pro, this is something I want to tap into also. Wow. That's what an agent is supposed to do, to make sure that we accomplish all of your goals and we're helping you on and off the pitch.
Yeah, I love it.
I would look at those things.
That's great. And almost, I mean, like asking them the charity, like that's That's incredibly special. I feel like I don't think that's common, and it really taps into not only like the person.
No, it's not.
So yeah, that's amazing. I really love that, and I think this will be so helpful for so many people, especially a lot of my friends who are now thinking of going pro and whatnot. So I think that's very very good.
Yeah, but absolutely, yeah. So I would say make a list. Make a list. It's so important to have that list.
Yeah.
And know what you want, know what you're looking for. I think a lot of times people will sign with a major agency because it's a major agency, right? And they're well known. But the question is, think about it. You're just one of 100 other players.
Yeah.
So when you go to that agency, ask them, how much time are you going to devote to me? And not just on the pitch with my contract, but off the pitch.
And really quick before we move on, just at what stage do you think that list should be made, or like at what stage should they start thinking about agents? Because I feel like it could be a very quick, like stressful process where you're like, okay, yeah, I choose you.
No, you're right. I would say, for me, probably like, because I'm so big on education, I would say by junior year. Because if you complete your junior year and you go pro for your senior year, so obviously you're ineligible to go back to school, right?
Yeah.
Then at least you've had about a year's time. But honestly, it's never really a time frame, because you could start by freshman year and say, well, I like this agent over there.
Yeah.
And I like what they're doing. And you can just even, kind of become informed with their company and what they're doing and some of their clients. And then as you start to build your brand within, college, you can then say, well, I've always had my eyes on this agency since my freshman year.
Right.
And I think I'm going to go with this one. And honestly, Carly, making a decision to pick an agent, always trust your instinct. Whatever your instinct tells you, if your instinct says, I like this person and I feel comfortable, I feel like they're going to really take care of me, then you can make that decision. But if it's not off the instinct and it's just influences from other people, don't do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Yeah, I love it. And so, okay, before we move on to fun questions, I do want to ask you, obviously we've talked about it, there are not many females in agents, and being an agent, being a soccer agent, whatever it is, especially people of color and minorities. So if you could attribute one thing that needs to change, or one step that needs to happen to really like take it to the next level, what would you say that is?
In order to become an agent, or
I think just to almost like bring light to the fact that you're female, you're interested in this, like how do we raise awareness, or like, raise light to the fact that, like, you could be an agent, and we need to bridge that gap between the male and females.
I mean, it definitely starts with media, right? Like exposure. So getting more exposure. But to me, I say I've had the opportunity to interview at a few places, and to, or for me, at least I thought that was set in the plan for me to be a junior agent at another agency, but that wasn't the plan that God had, right? So, because it didn't work out, and I ended up starting my own. And so I always tell people, look, I was asking for a seat at someone else's table. I didn't get the seat. So instead of, trying to find another seat, I just decided to create a whole new table and build a table. And at this table that I'm building, it's not just myself, but I'm bringing plenty of other women, plenty of other minorities, plenty of other people with me.
Yes.
Because it's so important that every person is able to have a seat at the table.
I love that. I don't think I could have said any better. I love that analogy and everything. Okay, Maggie, so tell me a little bit now, aside from being an agent, aside from all of your work, what's your passion? What's a passion or hobby that you have outside of work?
Ooh, so outside of sports and music and just running things with Trinity 3, I listen to music a lot. I love to read. I'm a huge book lover. Love to read. Every now and then watch movies.
Yeah.
Travel. I love to travel as well. So those are some cool hobbies for me.
Do you have a favorite book, like off the top of your head, that you just absolutely love?
Absolutely. This favorite one is The Outliers.
Oh, that's
by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I love that.
The Outliers. Can't you tell? I'm like influenced by the book.
Yes,
but
I think it's perfect.
The Outliers, definitely.
Okay, great.
Definitely
and then
one of my favorites.
My last question is, what is a fun or weird talent that you have that no one else really knows about? So I'm going to go first, and I'm going to show it to you. So what I do is I throw blueberries into my mouth. All right? So here we go. Okay, we'll see how this goes. There we go.
Wow. I mean, I could do that too. I don't have any blueberries right now, but I mean, a weird talent or interesting, maybe a hidden talent. Most people don't know. So I used to sing a lot. And literally, I used to just pick up any object in the house and just sing with it.
I love it.
My grandmother used to say they would have to hide pins because I used to go to church and I got somebody's drumstick and I would use that as my microphone.
Oh my God.
Then they hid the drumstick from me, so I couldn't find it. And then I found a different one, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna hide that too." And so I was like, "Well, since they're gonna hide everything that I'm using, let me just use a pen." And I would use pens as my microphone to sing.
I love that.
And
That's
so
hilarious.
my grandmother always tells the story. She's like, "Oh my God, I thought she was going to be a singer." The way she would look for all these objects to hold at her microphone, just sing. And that's a hidden talent because many people don't know that.
That's a great one. I love that. And then, so Maggie, where can people reach you most easily? Where can they find you? Where can they learn more about Trinity 3 Agency and everything else?
Absolutely. So for the agency side, it's Trinity3agency.com.
Okay.
And then you can also find Trinity 3 Agency, the company, on social. So on IG and Twitter, it's Trinity 3 Agency, Facebook as well. And then for myself, you can find me on Twitter, Agent Maggie Ntim. And then on Instagram, it's Maggie.ntim. Ntim.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been so fun just to learn more about this industry, about you, and just all the lessons learned. I loved it so much. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I love what you're doing. And please keep highlighting and continue to highlight amazing women because, as you know, we're better together than divided. And it's just so encouraging and really empowering. So definitely keep doing it.
Amazing. Thank you.